Ma, I don't know what else you could have done here. If he's satisfied after going through the case with you, then you will feel safe. You will feel validated. You will somehow regain your ability to sleep at night.
Fifth, your spouse can assist you in your academic work concerns. Grace and I are not active in the academy. Still, our involvement in our specialty societies sometimes lead us to give lectures to lay people and to other doctors. Your spouse is a great partner in lifting the burdens brought about by the duties of lecturing and teaching. She protects her quiet time when the lecture draws near, knowing the ton of research you have to do in order to give what's current and to be able to answer all the questions that might be thrown your way. She helps you filter the knowledge that you choose to impart, giving you feedback when the information is too technical or when it is not clear in its presented form. Just recently, I was a speaker in our convention, but was also the chair of the Fiscal Arrangement Committee. Just as I was doing the final revisions of my talk the night before, I was called around 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. the next morning to iron out some kinks in the hotel setup. Conveniently, Grace finished my presentation for me, and it sounded like I did it myself. Your spouse can clear the clinic schedule for you, coordinate with the secretaries and patients to make sure everyone's informed that she will not be around, and then remind all the patients she rescheduled about the date you will be back.
We listen to many talks together, listen to all kinds of lectures, so we can see different presentation styles and try to adopt those that are of benefit to us. When I have a lecture, he drives me to the appointed place because I'm too worried to deal with traffic, and assists me with the technical requirements of the presentation when I get to the venue, as I do not know much about technology. He gives me moral support and acts as a cheerleader if he is free to listen to my actual lecture.
6. Another great advantage of having a spouse who is a doctor is that you can design your work hours according to your needs. I don't know if this is still possible for our classmates who work in the US, but it is certainly possible for us who are here in the Philippines. Grace and I have melded our work hours so we could be together most of the time. First, this arrangement saves us money. We can manage our work hours with a single car, and we alternate driving duties so one can sleep while the other one drives. Or if we're both awake, it's a good time to be talking together and enjoying the trip. Second, it keeps us together. We have coffee for breakfast every day, eat lunch together 4 days a week. You see, we made a conscious decision early on about what we wanted to do in our lives. We wanted to fulfill our vocation as doctors, yes, but at the same time, we wanted to have space in the schedule for family, for health maintenance, and for growing in faith. We set up our day to be able to do all that. Our average day starts at 4 a.m. We walk or run for an hour. Weekdays, we then bring TV to school and go to Mass at the church near her school at 7:30. We have coffee after Mass and then start clinic at 10, ending more or less by 1 p.m. We eat lunch together and then do groceries and errands midday after the morning clinics. We have even managed to squeeze in a 2 to 5 once a week faith formation study class, which we've been attending faithfully for many years. Then we go to our respective afternoon clinics and look forward to dinner with the kids. Hospital rounds, if needed, are done after that. I don't think we could have done this or have the ability to do this together had we not been both doctors.
It's not really a question of finances. I mean, you could be the richest man in the world and you would still have to be a slave to the timetables of your work. We know very rich men who hardly have time to come home. But 2 doctors can have the luxury of arranging their time schedule. They have that unique gift of being able to pick out what they want to do with all the hours of the day. They also have the added gift of altering that same schedule when it no longer serves its purpose, or when their priorities have changed. For example, we plan to do more volunteer work in church and in our advocacies once we no longer have a child in high school. We can also choose to take a leave from work anytime we really need to. This might not be true for the surgical specialties, but it's true for us. We have attended every important event in our children's lives. And at least, because sometimes Dennis is toxic, I've been there in every family day or occasion in school. We've seen all their field demonstrations, have been there for their tooth surgeries and their vaccinations. We take vacations together. We call our scheduled patients ahead on the days we can't come and make ourselves available for text messaging instead. It's a compromise in patient care, but we found that texting patients about our situations allows us to keep them as patients while we attend to our private lives.
7, their material needs will be met. The income of 2 doctors will be enough to tide you through life. For a lot of us, it will be more than enough, particularly if you choose to work long hours or if you live a simple life like us. If you want to be a doctor for the money, you're not going to be satisfied with the money you make here unless you make medicine into a business instead of a vocation. There are doctors who do that, and that's their own lookout. But even if you live and work by our motto, which is profit with honor, the money that will come to you in both your practices will give you what most people aim for in life. A nice house, a car, education for the kids, vacations, and the like.
When we were starting out and I was making a pittance, I used to wonder whether we would ever get to the place where we could be on our own and support the family. We lived with my mom for 18 long years. We have never compromised with our faithfulness to thinking of our patients' interests above ours. I was afraid then that being a good doctor would always mean being a poor one. And I was a bit sorry for our kids whom I thought would never have the joy of living the comfortable life that our non-MD parents gave us. I was wrong. We were able to obtain what we needed in time. Our double income as doctors allowed us that. A lot of our couple classmates, some of them are here, are way richer than us. But I think I can say that all of us are able to have a decent, dignified life with the income that comes to 2 doctors working hand in hand. So, after those 7 advantages, are you convinced about all the pluses of marrying a doctor? Yes?
Yes.
But, before you exalt in that, let's look at the other side of the coin. Let's look at the dark side. Of course, you knew there would be one, right? Who among you are in medical relationships right now? Medical. I guess that dark side is manifesting even now, right? So let's enumerate naman the disadvantages of having a doctor as a spouse.
First, 2 strong personalities can wreck a relationship. Let's face it, as doctors, we're all trained to be decision makers with good reason. A lot of us will be placed in a life or death situations, and a strong personality is required in order to secure life for a patient. We are all encouraged to be the captain of a particular boat we get to sail in. We look at the history, we examine the patient, and we provide a remedy. Our word is law. And woe to the patient or the secretary or even another doctor who does not abide by it. The problem is that this set of skills is one that does not operate well within the confines of a marriage. We forget that as we leave the hospital corridors and enter the walls of our home, the goal is not to secure a life, and that the spouse is not an enemy that will subvert the outcome we desire. Another frame of mind is required for a trusting, nurturing relationship, one that is totally alien to a doctor. One, one that values compromise and humility. It's so alien I couldn't find it. We must trust that our spouses wants what we want. That unlike a patient, she wants to get on with the program of life we had agreed upon. We must be willing to admit that sometimes she knows better than we do, and that we are willing to try out her particular brand of remedy. That's hard for a doctor. Patients must be badgered to follow. No way the patient knows more than I do. But then again, remember, your wife and your kids are not your patients, and neither are they your lowly clinic or hospital staff.
As expected, we had intense fights in the beginning of our marriage. We argued a lot, most of them about trivial stuff we would laugh at today. We get worked up about which errands to do first, or which conference or parties we would attend, even which hospitals we get to do rounds first. We would chew each other out if one forgets to do an errand, or even fail to lock the windows of the house. We expected perfection from each other, much like we would expect the nurses to carry out our orders on the charts to the letter. When he corrects me, I would say, "Hoy, hindi mo ako pinulot sa kanal. Plus, mas mataas ang rank ko sa'yo sa class." As if a .000 something made a difference in real life. And never mind if he made so much more in the clinics than I did. Many times I felt like I was banging my head on the wall and I was not making any dents on it. I thought then that if I wanted to make this relationship work, I would have to accept that I would always give in to him, and that made me depressed. I was stupid enough to think that a good relationship was one where I would not have to compromise, when in fact, a relationship is good because both compromise. Not for the good of one, but for the good of the family. Thank God we finally learned to shed off the captain of the ship persona as soon as we step out of the clinics. Otherwise, we wouldn't still be together today.
There's a part where it says, I can tell a story. Grace tells me to scrap it out. But I'm going to tell a story just the same. It's about, have you heard of shouting in whispers? You haven't heard of shouting in whispers? We lived with my mother-in-law for 18 years. Our room is just next to the room of my mother-in-law. If you raise your voice, you would hear what you're talking about. If you're having fun and raising your voice, you would know what you're doing, okay? So, when we were quarreling at one time, we made sure my mother-in-law wouldn't know. So we had to shout in whispers. Tatawa kita ba yun? Hindi ko ginawa yun. Paano sinabing ginawa ka? Tatatagal sa boses mo. Marinig tayo ni Mama Cora. Huwag kang malakas sa boses. And then I had this inclination to throw something. I threw a throw pillow. Then I understood why they call it a throw pillow. It doesn't make a sound. And then she held the book and threw the book. Hindi na ba nag-throw? Ang lakas-lakas ng tunog nun. And then I go out the room. Morning, Mommy. That's shouting in whispers. So now, we follow the rule of the OR. I am the chief surgeon. She is the assist. We each have our duties, and we can be trusted to carry them out. However, during the few times you are not in agreement, I ask for her opinion, and she gives it together with her explanation of why she prefers that option. As chief surgeon, she knows I will give her viewpoint grave consideration, but in the end, I have the burden of deciding the final course of action, and we proceed together to carry out that judgment. She trusts that I decided with the family's best interest in mind. Should that path lead to consequences, I too will have to work to extricate ourselves out of it. She says that this arrangement serves to lift the burden of consequences from her shoulders and that it suits her fine. We've done this for 23 years of our 28 years together, and it has served us well. We recommend the same to you or both doctors in a relationship.
The second disadvantage, there's less of you to go around. Ah, doctors, what a talented bunch of people we are. And this advantage carries with it a flip side disadvantage. If you're not careful and you say yes to all the opportunities that come your way, you might just end up being a stellar doctor, but a wreck in your personal relationships, particularly in your family life. Now that we're 50 and have seen quite a bit of life, we know that the models of physicians set before us are not for everyone. If you subtract 6 hours for sleeping, 3 hours for personal hygiene, 8 hours for work, maybe 2 or 3 hours of Facebook, that would leave you with just 5 to 7 hours a day to do everything else. In that span of time, you'd have to fit in a lot of things. You're going to attend to the kids' needs, you have to go to your meetings and your conferences, you have to prepare for your lecture, you have to do the obligatory parties of your department, and how about your hobbies? You have to do that too, right? Plus, if you live in the Makati or Quezon City area, traffic time might just eat up all of the 7 to 5 hours that you have in excess during the day.
We've heard of doctors' kids ending up in a bad way, even doctor marriages falling apart. We've been so trained to look out for the welfare of everyone else except ourselves that we forget that our families and spouses deserve as much attention as a patient or a department meeting or a continuing medical education. We know our work in all its details, but don't know what's in the heart of our loved ones. When my daughter was born 10 years after our first son, Pico, my full schedule did not allow me to see her every day. When she was 2, she avoided me whenever I came home and preferred Grace or the Yaya over me. Grace told me that we had no control over our arm before, when Pico was born and I was still in residency. Because we were still in residency training, but now as a consultant, I had a choice. I could cut down on work and be a real father, or miss the chance to be part of her life. I chose to be a father, and I've never regretted that.
The third disadvantage, the family life of 2 doctors married to each other is a life full of interruptions. The phone is an instrument of torture that has the ability to squeeze the joy out of any moment. If we were in the car with the kids horsing around and the phone rings, we all freeze. They await with bated breath my pronouncement on who the caller is. If it's not the hospital, we return to the merriment of the moment. But if it is the hospital, then we execute the trained response. All conversations cease. We turn down the music and allow Dad to take the call. If he's getting stressed in the exchange over the phone, I signal him to go to the side of the road so I could drive for him while he plays hero to his patient who is in need of him.
I know that my job is a spoiler for our vacations. If a patient turns sour, then we need to go on a detour for rounds, and they will have to wait in the lobbies of the hospitals until the patient is tided over. Grace and the kids come armed with books, phones, chargers, wherever we go out. After all, they can never say what time they will come home and what place they will end up in whenever I'm with them. They take a lot of half-parent vacations. That means they're out having fun in a fun place with their mom while I'm attending my convention. I get to hear the full regalia of their trips when I get back to the hotel room, a lot of times falling asleep even before they're through. They've learned to accept my sleepiness as part of the package of a doctor's life.
Our kids have also been trained in a good art, and that's the art of smiling when we get stopped at malls, at hospitals, at convention hotels by patients, acquaintances, and colleagues. We introduce them as our kids and they give out the practiced, friendly grin. We consider it a victory when we are able to navigate through a day without stopping to say hi to anyone. They have accepted that the life of service of their parents includes extension of that service into our personal lives.
fourth disadvantage, practice traffic is highest on Saturdays and holidays. Another thing family will have to get used to, a doctor who obtains the lion's share of his practice from seeing patients in the OPD will work on Saturdays and sometimes even on holidays. Saturday clinics, especially for pediatricians, are equivalent to 3 to 4 days work, both in volume and in income. A lot of patients prefer doctors they can see on weekends. The patient's day off is the doctor's busiest day of work. Every profession has a disadvantage. This one is ours.
We have accepted that if we want to celebrate our holidays and vacations with all 4 of us in attendance, we need to get creative with our time schedule. Sometimes in desperation, we even kidnap the kids from school and ask them to be absent, just to be together. Such is our life. Unconventional is our conventional. We go out on school nights if we need to sort things out with our children, not minding that the kids have school the next day as long as they have completed the tasks that need to be accomplished in school. We trust that their minds can adjust, just as ours did, because, after all, they are the kids of doctors.
In the end, like all relationships, there are more advantages than disadvantages when two people are alike in perception, in values, and in goals. As we tell our children, get a spouse who shares a lot of your core values, as being man and woman is difference enough. When a doctor marries a doctor, the bulk of the core is already similar. They only need to take what is positive in that core and use it, not only in the clinics, but in the home.
Guys, you don't have to marry a doctor. But it would be great if you would. No pressure to our son who's in LU4. Thank you very much.